Alright guys, that's Scrappy Green again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Thank the Call of Duty gods. The final weekend of online qualifiers has finally arrived this weekend, but some big storylines on the day. Dashy 1v4ing big time last night into Money 8 against some of his own teammates, but also Scrappy commenting on the possibility of OpTic Scrappy next season. It was a big talking point during Major 3. Scrappy though says, regardless of the circumstances from now to the end of the year, he will not be going green for next season. What does this mean for the respective teams? Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. First of all, we've got a roundup on what happened in challenges yesterday because Team Falcons get the victory. Now, this is pretty incredible to think about, honestly. The fact that this Clutch Rain team, of course, Bant, Cobra, Denza, Harry, these guys that would have been favoured to win, they go down to, well, the first ever team from MENA, Middle Eastern African region, to win an elite. And they pocketed, what is it, 75 grand for the victory here. This is King of Body and the boys. And this guy, 5A I'm not even sure I'm going to pronounce that, to be honest, but he dropped 125 kills in the finals here. Okay, over 7 maps to be fair, over 6 maps, but a best of 7 series with a 1.4 KD for the dub, 24,000 damage. So just absolute monster performance. And it's really cool to see for guys like ROTY, of course, kind of, you know, was involved heavily in the European scene, kind of still is in some respects, but of course he's working with these guys in MENA now. And in the time that he's worked with this team, they've now become the best team in that region and they've won it today. So this makes things, I mean, fascinating, I'm not going to lie, going into especially the Esports World Cup, because I'm sure these guys are going to be there. And it's really a remarkable storyline in the region over the last several months, how good these guys have become. So definitely one to keep your eyes on there. Let's talk about the North American side though as well, because there was lots of importance on the Elite yesterday in terms of qualifying automatically for the Challengers World Championship. If you didn't qualify automatically yesterday, getting enough points and all this, you've got to go through the last chance qualifier or blow up your roster and sign someone to your roster instead, and then they can qualify for champs if your roster is confirmed. So, you know how it's going to be. There's going to be some roster shambles going down. But we did see Law Gaming. This is the team with Arcetes. They started off the stage really strong. They were absolutely frying. And but they went down yesterday to this 4th space team. That's Craze, Mock, Vivid, and Welly. So cool to see Vivid on this team doing some damage. Yuli had a pretty rough series here for Law, and obviously 2 ReeaL there as well. So, yeah, just interesting to look at, right? Because there was a time where these guys weren't really losing at all. Now they went down 3-1 to 4th space, and in the finals it was Omit GG that dominated the grand finals. That's Cammy's team. So this is Cammy, Awakening, Prolute, and Purge. That's a really good team of 4, and they just whitewashed the finals. Wasn't even especially close. I mean, the respawns were pretty much domination, certainly here on the sub base. So yeah, interesting to see these players. Of course, former pros effectively. Prolute's been in the league before. Awakening was in the league at the start of the season. Cammy, of course, was a name that I was honestly really looking at. It's like when the Boston Academy was kind of still a thing that it kind of isn't anymore, and Cammy went there after getting dropped off the Los Angeles Thieves. I thought that possibly Cammy into the Boston lineup at some point was a plausible option, but, you know, they decided not to do that. But here he is, Purge dropped into 1.34 as well. Cool to see him, you know, having a bit of a redemption arc here as well. And of course, that's big money to pocket. I think 75k for the champions, or at least 75k tournament overall. And yes, Prolute says champs with those boys. So very interesting results happening. And as a result of that, these players are not guaranteed to go to the World Championship. Loads of the teams that won will have been there, but as we can see, the team that came second, they're not guaranteed, as are, I mean, these are a number of kind of notable players that are not confirmed or will have to play through the last chance qualifier. Pending roster moves, of course, but, you know, RC's team, they qualified. We've got the likes of Assaults, though, Donny Temp, Capsadul, Classic, of course, loads of notable players. ErikBooM even, of course, is in the league earlier on this season. That will, you know, a maximum of 8 of these are going to make it, so only 2 teams can make it through of all these players. So, yeah, lots of notable players are not going to be at this year's Challengers World Championship, and of course, it's pretty important to be there because that is when, certainly for rookies, you're probably going to get noticed and picked up for the upcoming season. What do you guys think is the situation with the current Rookie of the Year race? Here are the Rookie of the Year cards. It's not so clear this year who's going to win it. For the last several years, let's even go back to 2018. 2018, we had Kenny. 2019, of course, we had Simp, among others. But, you know, let's just talk about Simp for that season. 2020 was Shotzzy. He was the MVP of the entire season. He came in that year. 2021, of course, was, well, I mean, Cold War season. So we're talking HyDra, we're talking Insight, we're talking Standy that came into the league. 22, of course, Pred came in. And last year was Scrappy. So almost every year there's been been a really notable talent that's come into the league. This season, that may well still prove to be true, but it's not clear right now because none of these guys are really on that good teams, and it's not like they've been unbelievable, right? Linz was really, really good at the start of the season. I think Gio's found himself in a position where it's possible he could win it if Vegas have a really good run, but I would say right now it's kind of a two-horse race because 04 has done well, and there's other players that have done well and impressed me, but they probably haven't had quite the length of time to prove themselves that maybe some of these guys have. aBeZy on Surge, ever since he's been on his preferred role, I think has been really good. And honestly, I think aBeZy might be just about my front runner right now, just because I think Surge are the superior team to Ravens, and Ravens might not make champs. I mean, frankly, Ravens have to qualify for champs for Gwyn to be the Rookie of the Year. It just doesn't work otherwise. If they do qualify, Gwyn very much could win it, and maybe should win it. But right now, of course, it's not exactly clear what is going to happen. It's all going to depend on Major 4. Just to mention as well, if you guys want to go to the Esports World Cup in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, it's only going to cost you $20 for a ticket for the entire 4-day event. And this is kind of, the interesting thing with what Saudi Arabia are trying to achieve here by having, creating this tourism industry is that, sure, the tickets are very affordable, right? You can go, but it's like, getting to Riyadh is not exactly cheap, right? So that's where you've got to weigh it up, that you're not really paying to attend the events, but you are paying to get to Riyadh if you want to go. So I guess we'll see how that goes, but yeah, the tickets are now on sale for that tournament in the middle of August. Wanted to share this 1 versus 4 as well. This is actually from Shotzzy's POV when he was getting cooked. One thing I wanted to say on this 1 versus 4, kind of as it plays out in the background here, certainly in the end from Dashy's point of view, or at least, well, Drazah's point of view, spectating Dashy, is just the players in this lobby, right? Because this is Tupac, FaZe's Search and Destroy coach. They've got Pred in here, they've got Shotzzy in here, they've got Dashy in here. So yeah, 3 OpTic players who are playing this. You've got Drazah, who's always grinding, and then you've got the FaZe Search and Destroy coach, and then Optimum and PaulX, I believe, rounds out basically the situation, right? There's one more, maybe Sib actually as well. Yeah, so there's Sib, couple of amateur players, FaZe's Search coach, and then 3 OpTic guys, which is, we're here in what they tend to call the final push, right? The World Championship is not far away. Less than a month from now, we are going to know pretty much, I think, our world champion for the season. This is the 1v4 from Dashy's POV as well. I'll share it on the big screen for you guys in a second. But we aren't far away from the big moments of the tournament and the season. And yet, how many players are really grinding 8s? Not that many, right? Where are the players on the bottom 8 teams? Like, what are they doing in the evenings, right? They play scrims and then they just go and chill for the rest of the night? Like, the guys that are grinding are Drazah, obviously, Sib, the OpTic boys, and that's basically it.
I can't die anymore, chat. Oh, close.
Oh, you win these.
You got this!
You win these.
Wait, Puck. Good Puck, bro.
That's bomb down on that guy. That's
Oh!
Get into play B.
Is bombs in spawn? Oh my god! Come on, man! Hold on here! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god, let's go. Come on.
If BO6 go back to 5v5, we seen you go green. Bro, I hope COD never goes back to 5v5. And no, you won't be seeing me go green.
Can't work on the bottom side, he can't push his way out through middle.
So what do we think about what Scrappy had to say there on the going green angle, right? This kind of reminds me a little bit of when Methods retired famously in Boston at the start of 2023, and he said that, the future is green and all this, and it's like, yeah, I think we know what he's getting at there. And of course, shortly afterwards, he joins OpTic with Scump, and the rest is history since then. But the talk has been, certainly during Major 3, when OpTic weren't looking that good until the Sunday, but certainly before Major 3, and the qualifiers and the major, it was about, okay, Toronto have kind of fallen off a bit since their Major 1 victory. Could Scrappy to OpTic be a possibility at some point in the future? And many were saying, yeah, it should be happening. Scrappy in for Kenny, Scrappy in for Dashy is going to take that team to the next level. And is there an argument to be made for that Scrappy would improve OpTic? Sure, but he says, look, that's not going to be happening. If it became 5v5, he ain't going to go anyway, and if it stays 4v4, he's definitely not going to go. So very interesting to hear that Scrappy you know, look, I don't think he's ever going to rule out the possibility of playing for OpTic at some point. But I think his feeling is, and the feeling is of the respective teams, that it's not going to happen. And you've also got to wonder what Scrappy's motivations might be. Like, it's not like Scrappy would never leave Toronto, I don't think. You know, he may leave Toronto if FaZe were to say, hey, do you want to come and play for us? Like, what matters to Scrap? Because for Drazah, it was very clear that winning and, you know, leaving a legacy, even as a bit of a villain or whatever you want to say, that mattered a lot to Drazah. But mainly, you know, the money and the winning, I imagine. That's why he chose FaZe over OpTic. For other players, they would choose differently. What would Scrappy do? You know, very difficult to say. Let's say magically he gets both offers. OpTic say, hey, we want you. FaZe say, hey, we want you. Where does Scrappy go? That's a matter for speculation, but he says, look, I'm not going to go to OpTic. Now, of course, Scrappy's good at this media management stuff. He's not going to say, oh, yeah, well, you know, I guess we'll see about that type of thing. Like, he's not really going to entertain the OpTic rumors just because he's currently contracted to Toronto. He likes it there. He's not going to, you know, throw his teammate under the bus or anything and say, oh, these guys are bad, so, you know, I want to leave and all this. But it definitely doesn't seem like something that's, you know, planned on his mind to go, because if you compare this Scrappy situation to what's been happening, you know, what happened with Pred last year, it was, of course, a very different story, right? Now, they were on teams of different strengths. Toronto are a strong team, and they could potentially still do some serious damage from now to the end of the year. But at the same time, it's not like either team is looking in prime position or pole position to win the World Championship right now. OpTic have, you know, stumbled somewhat over the last couple of weeks. And once again, despite winning the major not long ago, the questions are now there with OpTic as to whether this really is going to be the team of four that wins them the World Championship, which is obviously what the goal really is at the end of the day. And last year, from January time, really, when it was relatively well known that Pred was going to go to OpTic, you know, he was entertaining it, right? Like, he wasn't shutting it down. People would come in his chat and say OpTic Pred, OpTic Pred. They would chanting it on the main stage. And sure, it was kind of annoying, I'm sure, for Pred on some level. But, like, you know, Pred was never like, oh, you know, I'm not joining OpTic, what are you talking about? He was like, oh, well, you know, I guess we'll see about that. Or, you know, he was obviously playing around with the idea of joining OpTic because everyone kind of knew it was going to be happening. The Scrappy case is very different. And I don't think there's any guarantee at all that, you know, OpTic Scrappy actually happens for next season and beyond. I think it's definitely a possibility over the coming years. But I feel like for next year, it's probably not going to happen. And also that raises the question, what does it mean, for example, for the rest of the field? Because let's say Scrappy stays in Ultra, which I genuinely think is the best thing that should happen for this league. Like, I don't want Scrappy to leave Toronto. He's a massive personality. If he goes to FaZe, if he goes to OpTic, it only consolidates those teams more so. I prefer having multiple storylines, multiple rivalries, and Scrappy staying at Toronto, I think, is for the best. But if Scrappy were to stay and his team wasn't good enough, then where do you go? Well, that's when the whole HyDra to Toronto possibility has been floated. That what about a HyDra CleanX SMG duo? Where do you go from there? You know, look, Envoy's a great player. He's a world champion. But if you wanted to try and pack a punch the SMG duo on Ultra, you know, HyDra would be the man to look at, right? So there might be something to be said for that. Intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. We've got to talk about briefly, though, the matches for the weekends. These are the final set of online qualifiers of the entire season. And these are the 3 games of today. 2, well, even 3, really, actually fascinating games. I'm, like, really looking forward to tonight, I'm not going to lie. Surge versus Miami, I have no idea how to call. They are arguably both the 5th, 6th best team. They have a similar style. This will be fun to watch this series. Like, they will be back and forth. I think it probably should go to a game 5, to be honest. I may have to take Miami just because I think their search and destroy right now is slightly better. Like, if it does go 5, I'm probably leaning Miami to take the victory, at least as it stands, but Surge are damn good as well. So that should be a bit of a bloodbath. The final game of the night, Thieves versus Vegas, is important for Thieves because they've been stuck at 145, and their final game of the weekend is against New York Subliners. So this is almost like a must-win for Thieves, because if they lose this, they're going to be in a real predicament going into the major, you know, possibly a really bad start in the losers bracket, then, you know, not getting the points they require. Vegas, a victory here will, I mean, it's just such a massive series for both of those teams, and who knows who's going to win that. And then Toronto FaZe, chucked in the middle there. Again, Drazah versus Scrappy. We're back again for several times this season. Always a fun one. Online, FaZe tend to have their number. On LAN, it can be a bit of a different story. So I think I'm taking Miami, probably FaZe. and possibly Vegas. I don't know. This is quite the day, I'm not going to lie. So very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.